Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving for those that celebrate it. As you can see, we're getting into the mood here as well over in Europe. Welcome to our latest LinkedIn Live, which is all about why most onboarding sucks, but how to fix it. We've got the gang together who are going to be talking about how they have developed incredible onboarding programs for their teams. My name's Dave Wilkins, founder of SDR Leaders of EMEA. I will let our amazing group introduce them and tell you who they are. Mafalda, let's start with you.
Hello. Good that you start with me because Matt just disappeared.
Yes, that's great.
Great timing. So I will entertain the audience with my presentation. So my name is Mafalda. I'm head of growth at SDRs of Germany. So if you're looking for SDRs who speak German or vice versa, let me know. I used to be head of business development for many years. And in one of my jobs, I corrected and reviewed over 200 onboarding paths from many different companies. That was a job I had a couple of time ago. So most of the mistakes we're going to talk about are mistakes that I've seen over and over and over again. And that's my presentation, right on time to pass the word to Matt.
Sorry about that. Please repeat the question.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who am I? A guy who's got zero control over his technology. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt. I'm the head of sales at Prospio.io. I run a couple of communities that train salespeople and sales leaders. And it has been my life for maybe the last 12, 13 years.
You're that old. Sorry. Let's end it. Sorry, we'll be positive. So, ladies and gentlemen, Matt is really young. He's just, he's really young. Mafalda as well.
Yes, I'm very young.
Yes, very young. So, hey, it'd be great to know for the audience that's there. We've got our comments in here so we can see live the questions coming in. It'd be great to see where you're joining from, but also when was the last time that you redesigned your onboarding? And we're going to be talking a lot about that today. This LinkedIn Live is also sponsored by Comsor, and we'll talk a little bit about Comsor a little bit later on. But let's get into the first question, which is reality check. Matt, we'll start with you. What's the biggest reason most SDR onboardings fail?
Biggest reason. The challenge is I think of 5.
Go with
one. I think there's quite a few factors. I think one of the depends what we determine is failing, right? Are we saying failing is SDR comes on board and doesn't succeed in ramp, and then because I think one of the biggest ones there is how quickly you can get people.
The third question, which is keep going, ignore that.
I'm not the only one with technical issues. Yes.
Yes.
Next one, it's gonna be me.
Yeah. I think it's down to how quickly you can get them doing the job, right? That can. I've seen that with lots of different companies where some, their training is all around getting them on the phones as quickly as possible, getting them obsessed with their ICP and speaking to them, and others kind of tread carefully around it because it's scary and stuff. And I think that's probably the thing that first popped to my head.
Brilliant. Mafalda, what about you? Why do most onboardings for SDRs fail?
Like Matt, I have loads of reasons, 99 reasons, right? And you're not one of them, Dave. But I would say the biggest thing I see, it's most of the information is irrelevant, especially for the first weeks. So most of the onboardings fail because drowning your salespeople, SDRs, AEs, whoever, with loads of information that's not needed at the moment. And if you don't apply the information right away, you will forget. So statistics say that 70% of what you learn in your onboarding is forgotten, right? And for me, that says it all.
I mean, who still indicates when they drive, right? Not everyone.
Yeah.
Maybe why don't we ask this question as well as the next thing? What's the kind of the early warning signs that onboarding is collapsing? So you mentioned it about kind of learning too much too soon, but are there anything else that you're seeing that makes that early warning signs, those red lights start flashing?
I would say, and that's another common mistake I see. So we salespeople, we have KPIs, right? Customer success is churn rate and upsell, SDRs between booked in opportunities, account executive, new business closed. And that's okay, but we forgot to have soft KPIs during the onboarding. And that will show you if the person is on track or not, and if not, which area does this person need more training on. So most of the onboarding paths I've seen, they don't have soft KPIs. So the manager doesn't know if the person is actually doing a good job or not, because it's still too early to check on revenue or meetings booked, right? Because we cannot expect the person to bring $1 million deal, on their second week. So just because you cannot measure that, it doesn't mean you cannot measure other things that are early signs that the person might perform or not. So that's one mistake that I see and that I suggest to people if you change the onboarding path, to add soft KPIs in each week of the onboarding and ramp time.
What would be your favorite soft KPIs for that period?
So for me, I would say, for example, on the second week, after I've trained them on product and persona, I want them to send an email. I want them to send, for example, 50 emails already, right? So I don't expect them to book a meeting yet, but I want them to already be able to create a good list. And then I check if the list is good. If not, they need more training on list building and personas, right? And then send 50 emails. Did they struggle? Did they spend 2 days sending those 50 emails? Then you have an issue there, right? What's the quality of the emails? Then you move to cold calls. How long did they take to make the cold calls? How was their opening? So you need to start having assessments, kind of like in school, before having the hard KPIs. So you can tackle those issues sooner rather than later.
When I took over a team a couple of years ago, they didn't get their team calling until 3 months into the job, because they had to learn a combination of 120 use cases with different verticals and different products. So the first thing I did was strip that down to 8 and got them.
Which is already a lot, 8, by the way, when you're new and you know nothing about the company. And that goes exactly for what I mentioned, overload of information that, you're still trying to understand what the product is, especially technical products. And then you suddenly have the pressure to know, hundreds of different combinations that are not even needed until you get to the use case.
Clear 8 over the course of 6 odd months. It was like we taught them one thing at a time and got them on the phone in the second week of them. No, like the 4th day of employment or something like that. Because you just can't overload people. It's not fair.
Yeah.
I joined a company where we had to learn every data center in the UK before we could really properly have conversations with people. But it was an interesting one, because like we would be assisting the senior salesperson, so we'd be involved with the day-to-day whilst we're learning all of this. And after a month, you'd then be like properly unleashed. It was incredible, because it kind of argues the flip side, right? Like we were like compelling out the gates, because someone would say we're moving from this data center to this data center, and then you'd suddenly just tell them the nearest road, and they'd be like, "Oh, touché, sir."
Yeah. I like the question that you just popped, Dave. What's the most useless thing? I know this is for the audience, but I just want to quickly share mine.
Please go ahead.
Just many years ago, when I was still VDR, I was like in this normal onboarding where most of the information is not needed. And my favorite one was they made me watch a 1-hour video, not 10 minutes, 1 hour. That's super technical. That's like directed to software engineers I can tell you, I didn't understand a single word of the whole video. So there you go. I wasted 1 hour of my life and on my ramp time that I could be, learning something that's useful for my job and to make me successful, listening to a video that makes absolute no sense to me. So that was the first thing that I cut out when I was team leader. I was like, that video out of the onboarding, because it's not only the fact you're wasting time, but you're scaring people off. And people also forget that the first day and the first week of any employee, whether it's in sales or not, makes a huge impact on the rest of the year for that person. So if you scare, especially if you are, training junior SDRs and you give them a 1 hour video of something they don't understand, you make them feel stupid, you make them nervous, you make them feel I will never get this job. And that's the last thing you want your newbie to feel about your company and about your product.
So let's see what else in the chat people say is the most useless thing they learn. Matt, for you, why do you think companies overload new hires with so much product training first?
My sound. Did you say Mafalda or Matt there?
Matt,
it was my Leicester accent. I'm going back home over the weekend, so I'm trying to get back. Matthew, question for you.
There's a huge common misconception by most organizations, right? And it's like they need to know everything about our product to be able to go out there and successfully sell it. And there's two things wrong with this, right? Because I almost understand that attitude, but if we don't make it about our product, because at the end of the day, no one gives a bleep about our product until they care about it, right? So we naturally, we all just think about ourselves. Companies do the same thing. We're the best service provider of X, Y, and Z. You need to know everything about us so you can differentiate from our competitors. You can tell people how we solve their specific problems. And really, we need to just obsess over the ICP. Like, what is their world? Who are they? Why do they go to work? What does their team look like? What are the problems their team face? What are the problems they face? Who do they report to? What are the problems that they face? And the more you obsess over that, then it's a way easier way to have a conversation with someone where you know and you can relate to them to some degree. Versus,
absolutely,
I know nothing about you, but I tell you what, let me tell you how flipping good I am.
Yes, I that's definitely one of the most common mistakes is you have hours and hours of product training, and then you have one sheet of these are the priorities of your buyer persona.
Yeah.
Right. And the contrast is so huge. And then you have and then you wonder why an SDR, for example, especially most junior ones, they cannot have interesting conversations with CTOs, right? When the only thing they know about them is one cheat sheet about them. They want their team to perform.
Yeah.
They don't like bugs. Other than that, you're good to go. And yeah. And that's another reason why people are afraid of cold calling. Many times it's not the fear of the phone, is I don't know how to talk to these people.
Yeah, what am I going to say? What am I going to ask? And cool, I know what to tell them if they say a very specific thing about a problem. I'm ready for that. If they somehow say I have a problem ramping SDRs, I'm like, oh, gotcha. But getting them to that point of saying that's like, oh, we'll train you this later. Once you know our product, we then believe you can go and tell people about our product. And that's the right. So, and I think that's the thing, right? I think companies will worry about, okay, well, how confident can they talk about our product? And therefore we need to give them more information. We need to give them more and more and more. When in my ramping for teams is really quite straightforward, to be honest. And soft KPI for me, and Fowler, what you were talking about earlier, is my favorite one is how much information can we collect on someone? Nothing to do with meetings booked or anything like that. It's just how much information can we collect on people? How do we get that information? Well, we need to open calls and ask questions. And how do we do that? Well, the more you know your ICP, the more you can be a bit more compelling about your observation or whatever, and then get the opportunity to ask a question. So it all revolves around getting them having chats. And then We collect the information, we get them used to collecting information, and that can be via LinkedIn, email, phone call. And then the whole point is eventually within, after a few weeks of doing this, it's like, do I have enough information to be able to pitch someone effectively? And you'll get the rock stars that join your company who can pick that up a lot quicker and they can start pitching earlier. But it all comes back to, do you have enough information to even pitch them? And it's a really interesting shift, because that you have to go from, do I trust this person talking about my product, to, do I trust this person to talk to someone? And 9 times out of 10, we're just like, dude, can they talk about our products? And yes,
You have a fan there, Matt from USEF, loves your point. Be more consultative, less me.
Yeah. How can you be empathetic if you don't understand your buyer persona? If that was not on the onboarding, and that cheat sheet doesn't count, right?
Yeah.
And that comes up. And that I will also add. So on the onboarding, not only you should give more training on the persona, but when you do role plays, if you're not targeting head of sales, maybe you shouldn't be doing role plays with me, the head of sales, or the head of SDR. So that's another thing I do on the onboarding to make the salespeople feel more comfortable with their buyer personas, is to either they speak to that buyer persona in the company. So every company has a CTO or head of engineering. If you're targeting them, you should book a call with them and your head of engineering. And if you have 1 or 2 customers with whom you really get along, bring them to your onboarding, right? And you don't need to bring them every time you onboard, especially if you onboard a lot of people. You can record one of the sessions and use that as content so you don't have to ask your CTO or your customers all the time. But at least, your salespeople, they need to hear your buyer persona speaking, not me speaking about them that I never solved a bug or programmed in my life, right?
Completely. So let's just take time out for a second, and let's just wanted to give a massive shout out to Comsor, who are sponsoring our LinkedIn Live today. Thank you so much, Comsor. They unlock the power of your networks by enabling you to scale your business, simplify your resources, and increase your presence in ways that traditional marketing or advertising channels can't. So with Comsor, they can fill your pipeline with more warm intros, get more referrals from customers, multi-thread, and leverage social proof within your network. And also, they do amazing stickers as well. I'm sure if you ask Mac, the CEO, nicely, I'm sure he will send you some as well. So I'll put the link for Comsor in the chat a little bit later, but thank you so much for all your support, guys. So let's go to kind of like how to fix this, how to solve this problem. So what does great onboarding actually look like? So we've started talking a little bit about this, or dropped a few points, but Matt, it'd be good to start with you about, if you were to build a great onboarding program from scratch, well, what is your one non-negotiable?
Oh, one non-negotiable. Dave, give me 3 or something.
We haven't got time. We haven't got time.
I've got 3 pillars for my onboarding, and I stick to my 3 pillars every time. But I think one of the ones is like, and it touches on Mafalda's point on the soft KPIs. But like that first 3 months, I've got goals set with them, linked to the actions they're going to be doing each week, and we can either hit those a bit earlier, great, and we can progress, or we may take a little bit longer, and it means a little bit more time is allocated to them, or more time is spent with a fellow SDR who's been doing it for a couple of years and is absolutely smashing it, right? So it just means I'm strict with them, and they know what expectations are. Like there's no hiding from anything at that point.
What's your one non-negotiable, Mafalda?
For me, it's you need to mix theory with practice, like enough of one-way street information drop and then expecting the person to remember the whole week after. So small chunk of information, exercise. And the exercise has to be related to the day-to-day job. If it has nothing to do what you're going to do in your job, please remove it, not relevant, right? So first, you present the buyer personas, you ask the question, what are the problems they have? What are their priorities? Make sure by the answers of your salespeople that they understand that. Great, they understood it. Okay, this is how Sales Navigator works. Now build a list. Now that you know what the right ICP and buyer persona is, and you know how to use Sales Navigator, because I just showed you, build me a list with Sales Navigator. Great, that's done. Now I'm going to show you how to write a great email. Did you understand how does it look like? Now it's your turn. Yada, yada, yada. So small chunk exercise. Exercise has to be something you're going to do in your day-to-day, and then repeat the next week and the after, and refine and get better.
Awesome. So I've just put a question in the chat for people that are listening in. Tell us in the amount of days it takes for your SDRs to ramp at your org. Ramp meaning they are hitting their ramped quota that you've set for them. It'd be really interesting to see kind of how many days that takes for your teams currently to do. So let's then talk about the kind of the playbooks, that the frameworks. You've mentioned a little bit about it already, and so Matt, this is really good. Now you can mention all 50 of your pillars now on your framework. Yeah,
there's 3, right? There's
3. What's your framework?
The structure of the onboarding, so we'll have that completely like mapped out. Then there's going to be like all the information that we can gather on our ICP, and then how that relates to like what they're going to be. Very similar to what Mafalda's mentioned, to be honest. And it's going to be like, first couple of weeks is going to be about understanding and beginning to speak to these people and not understand why we're asking all of these questions, so we can understand who they are and so on. And then that will progress, and as we go through each stages, we'll be learning new skills. But it is very call heavy early days, because tends to be like the hardest bit. And then everything around email and LinkedIn is all in support of that stuff, and we kind of introduce that incrementally. And this would usually be over a 3-month period. And then the third pillar is always pair them with someone who is already delivering and is enthusiastic towards helping others. And the reason why that's really important for me is the energy that they've set will, 9 times out of 10 be replicated in the new hire. They'll celebrate the successes together. Never will I pair these people with people who are like, I'm a lone wolf, I go about this alone. I am the boss. Because then it will have another effect on it, right? And I want them to celebrate the wins, understand the learnings which I'm there to help them with, and also see what it's like. So yeah, it always comes around being like transparent with what we're going to be doing every single month and why. And it's all about understanding the ICP and actually experiencing the engagement with them as quickly as possible. And we go through all of that, and then making sure they're paired with someone who's delivering, is enthusiastic, and is open, is one of those personas who love to help people. And that I tend to actually, if I don't have those 3 things in place, I would tend to not hire.
Okay. Mafalda, you have, this is where you're going to plug your book, I think, because you've talked about your frameworks for your onboarding, if you want to get your book out.
Yes, if there are Portuguese in the audience, there you go. That's my book. If you don't speak Portuguese, don't bother. Or if you want to learn Portuguese. But yeah, so everything what Matt said, and I would really highlight the fact that when you are onboarding someone, you really need to give timely feedback. So it's great when you, for example, add the exercises that I mentioned and that Matt mentioned, but make sure that you review if the exercise was the email or a cold call, make sure you're reviewing them almost on the spot, or at least on that day, right? So that I also saw companies where they built the onboarding exactly the way me and Matt mentioned, and then they're like, oh, I don't really have time to review all of the assessments, and they start accumulating, and then the salespeople have no feedback from their exercises, so they also don't know if they're going on the right track or not. So you as a manager, you need to prioritize onboarding. It is essential. It's not a nice to have. So I would prioritize, because I've seen a lot of managers saying everything else was more important than onboarding my team properly. And for me, I don't understand what can be more important than that, if that will make or break your year in terms of results. So definitely make sure that it's practical, it's relevant, you give the information when it's needed, and you give timely feedback to your new SDRs and account executives.
Awesome. So yeah, so guys, ladies as well, learn Portuguese by Mafalda's book.
That was not the conclusion of what I mentioned,
okay.
But thank you.
Sure. Okay, that's fine. So we had a question from Bar, all the way from New York. He asked the question about, for fast scaling teams, how would you integrate AI into the onboarding workflows? Maybe Matt, you take this.
I would introduce it in a very, very controlled way.
Yes.
AI is wonderful, but like it allows you to do a lot of things. And if you don't do it in a controlled way, you'll do a lot of things really, really badly. You'll just times everything by 10. So depending on like the setups you've got with AI, you do it in a controlled way. So if you're going to be using it to help them understand ICP or who you're selling to, I think it's a really good use case. But you've then got to compare it to all the information you've already had. So maybe they can find out something new, but it always has to be compared to with current customers or other stuff. If you're going to get them to use it for outbound, again, did a post on this today, and it was like literally whatever you feed ChatGPT to write an email, it will just spit out whatever. So if you're getting your team to craft cold emails for your ICP and you just get them, and they're new to outbound of them, right? Cold email, I'm talking to head of sales. It's going to create something that's a little shit, to be honest. So provide them the prompts and the context that they need to whatever the task is they're doing with AI to nail that. And some really good ones would be like if they're capturing qualification from a phone call, they can take the transcript from the call, pop it into AI, and then your prompt just helps structure it so it fits to your qualification frameworks, and it presents a nice thing to your AEs, which they can easily go through and be like, cool, that's the qualification. This is the call. So control it.
Yeah, 100%. I would also add that, like in other stuff, AI can be great to brainstorm. So, for example, you can also say, hey, I would like to train my new SDRs or AEs in these subjects. Suggest me exercises, right? So if you don't know which exercises for a certain topic, you can say what your goal is, what you'd like to assess, and you can ask AI for an exercise. So that's also a very good way, especially if now your onboarding is super massive on information drop and you still need to chunk the information and add exercises to it. AI is a very good way for you to have a better onboarding in a speedy way, right? So to make it more efficient. That's one way to use it. The other way is there are for example, for role plays, right? Imagine that your customer doesn't have time, your CTO or CISO doesn't have time. There are AI companies that they impersonate their personas, and you can role play with them before doing cold calling, right? So that's another way to use AI in your onboarding, is to actually do role plays with personas that are more realistic than with me, who never did cybersecurity before. So that's another way you can use AI in your onboarding. But again, AI should help you make it better and more efficient. It shouldn't make you lazy, right? It's not like, I don't have time to onboard. Let me use ChatGPT to create a quick onboarding and drop it to my people. So that's why I agree with Matt when he said, please use it controlled. Yes, I cannot agree more than that.
Brilliant. That's maybe a good way to end it there. We've run out of time. Mafalda, Matt, thank you ever so much. Yeah, great. How is it that you get these backgrounds?
I also want fireworks.
This is not fair. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for your questions, for your insights. Matthew, Mafalda, thank you ever so much again. We will be back again in a couple of weeks where we're going to talk about how to kick off 2026 and be successful as an SDR leader. It's not one to miss. I'll see you all in a few weeks. Thanks ever so much, everyone.
See you
See you
there.
soon.